training at the Menninger Clinic meant a psychiatrist learned how to treat the whole person. The biological aspects, but also psychological and relational, and even spiritual aspects. And so as the medical director of the residential program, I feel it's my responsibility to make sure that children are getting good treatment and they're getting what they need. One of my favorite questions is, what's happening that's happening? So really my job is to find out what's happening that's happening, and then to change it so that something different can happen. And really, like, that kind of problem solving, I have knowledge about, and I would call it literacy about medical issues, literacy about psychological issues, literacy about relational issues, so that you have some sense of knowing what's going on in different areas, and finding out where is the parts that aren't working so well, for this particular kid, so you can really individualize their treatment and help them get on track for themselves. And let me tell you the thing that I'm most passionate about with PRTF kids in Kansas. I think at least 80% of PRTF kids in Kansas have what's called developmental trauma. And developmental trauma is early childhood abuse, neglect, traumatic experiences, and disrupted relationships. And early childhood trauma then has a dramatic impact on a child's development, because it happens during development. It can arrest development, it can halt it. And so the train has stopped in its tracks, And one person that talks about this says, you have to get back on the train where you got off it. You probably heard of Erickson's 8 stages of development. So the first stage is basic trust versus mistrust. And the kids that we work with, 80% of them that have developmental trauma, they went the basic mistrust route because their parents or their caregivers or their environment wasn't trustworthy, did not provide them what they needed. And so what they learned is, I'm on my own because I can't trust people to help me. In fact, if I was going to put my trust in anything, it's that they're going to try to hurt me. And so therefore, I need to take care of myself. I need to get what I need secretly, manipulatively, because otherwise I won't get it at all. And that's what they had to do to survive. Now you have a kid that doesn't trust people and is going to get their needs met secretively. All the different therapeutic modalities, they're going to defeat because they see all of them as potentially dangerous. So therefore they don't get better in outpatient treatment because they're defeating all of those things. And it takes a pretty strenuous effort to be able to change that pattern, to be able to convince a kid to give trust a try, to give it a chance, and to make it appealing enough, not only that it might not hurt you, but it actually might have something appealing to it, because they've tried to shut down their need for connection because it was too painful for them. And the pain of it, if they just continued experiencing it over and over, they might not have survived that, But now we have to reawaken their longing for connection that they've, probably less consciously, but nevertheless, they've pushed it down. So this is, for example, then one of the things then, as I discovered as the medical director at Kids TLC, is that a lot of the kids that we're working with, 80 or 90% of them have developmental trauma. Developmental trauma causes basic mistrust, and that unless we address the basic mistrust, they're not going to be able to go back and live in their community, because they may have a good foster family. They may have good adoptive parents. Other relatives might be raising them. They may have the best therapist in the world. They may have great school teachers. Their Sunday school teacher may be amazing. Their Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Cub Scout leader may be great. But they're going to try and push all of those people away. And so You have to change that one thing, otherwise it keeps them from even wanting to take anything in. It's the water all around and not a drop to drink kind of, phenomenon. Kids that came into PRTF had skill deficits. And so trusting adults is a skill. There's actually a skill aspect to it. And that in order to help them go back to the community, they had to have sufficiently built the skill. Not that their symptoms needed to have sufficiently decreased, but that their capacity needed to have sufficiently increased, their capacity for trust. Because then, now, like, I think a PRTF prepares a kid to do outpatient treatment, is that we take kids that can't do outpatient treatment, they're failing at their treatment, they're not getting better, they're getting worse, and make them ready for treatment. They can go see a therapist, they can take their medicine, they can tell their mom if they're feeling suicidal, so then they can do that treatment. Now they need several years of outpatient treatment, but they couldn't even do outpatient treatment before. I know that things can be different for these kids. And one story would be when my parents got divorced when I was a teenager, I saw a child psychiatrist 2 times. And he really listened to me in a way that other people hadn't, to understand my experience. It turns out that was a child psychiatrist who trained at the Menninger Clinic. And how did I get from Houston to Kansas? It very well could be that his influence was like that, So I know the power that understanding experience has in building trust. So, and I also know that it has, not just for these kids, but for humanity, so it has like a very big implication, because if we don't learn to understand each other's experience and build trust with each other, then humanity may not survive as a species. But on the other side of it, that's the serious side. The other side is it's very fun to be together and understand each other's experience,